The call you can't ignore, hearing God in the noise. Every day, the world shouts for your attention. Social media screams opinions, culture sells confusion, and fear whispers in the back of your mind that you are not enough, that you have missed your chance, that God might have moved on from you. But somewhere beneath all that noise, there is a quieter voice, steady, loving, patient, calling your name. That's not your imagination. That's not coincidence. That's your Creator reminding you that His purpose for you still stands. It doesn't matter what mistakes you've made or how far you think you've drifted. God's call is not fragile. His grace is not temporary. His love does not expire. Many people wait for a dramatic moment to hear God, a vision, a voice, a miracle, but often He speaks through the stillness, through conviction, through divine timing that seems ordinary. Maybe you're watching this right now because He's using this very message to reach you, because He knows you've been carrying a quiet heaviness, questioning if you've failed Him, wondering if it's too late to realign your life. But hear this, God does not waste time, and He certainly doesn't waste people. The fact that you can hear this message means you are still in His plan. You are not behind. You are right on schedule for the version of you He's calling forth. To trust God's grace is to stop running from His timing. It's to accept that you are loved even when you don't feel worthy of it. Grace is not a reward, it's an invitation. It's God saying, "Come home, let me build you again." And love, His kind of love, isn't a feeling that fades. It's the foundation that holds your life steady when everything else collapses. If you could see what He sees in you, you'd stop doubting your potential. You'd stop comparing yourself to others. You'd realize that the reason life's been shaking you lately is not because you're being punished, but because He's been trying to get your attention. When God calls you, He doesn't ask if you're ready. He already knows what He placed inside you. The question is, will you respond? Because every delay in obedience is a delay in destiny. The opportunity to trust Him will never feel convenient. You'll never feel ready to walk by faith. But that's the point. If you could do it on your own, it wouldn't require grace. There comes a moment when you have to quiet the noise, step away from distraction, and choose to hear Him above the chaos. Maybe it means cutting off certain voices. Maybe it means releasing the habits that keep numbing you. Maybe it means admitting that your plan isn't working. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. When you surrender control, you make room for divine direction. And once you decide to respond to that call, your life will never look the same again. You'll start noticing alignment instead of accidents. You'll see closed doors as protection, not punishment. You'll understand that grace doesn't erase your past. It transforms it into testimony. The world might still doubt you, but heaven has already approved you. You'll walk differently because you'll finally understand you are not walking alone. So today, hear this clearly. You are not forgotten. You are not too far gone. You are not disqualified. God's call is active right now. The only thing standing between your potential and your purpose is your response. The grace that saved you once is the same grace that will sustain you now. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to say yes. This is your moment to silence the noise and answer the call that's been echoing in your spirit. Because when you finally trust His love, everything in your life begins to align. You start walking with peace in uncertainty, strength in weakness, and joy in surrender. That's what it means to live under grace, not to be flawless, but to be faithful enough to respond when God says, now. And right now, He's saying it again. Not later, not after things get better, not after you feel qualified. Right now, trust His grace, trust His love. Because the moment you do, your life shifts from survival to purpose. You begin to understand that faith isn't about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about realizing that this is the moment God has been preparing you for all along. Trusting God when you can't see the way. There will come a time in your life when the plan you built so carefully begins to fall apart. The doors you were sure would open stay shut. The people you thought would stand beside you start to drift. And the path that once looked clear now feels like walking through fog. It's in that season, that place between what you expected and what actually is, that trust becomes more than a word. It becomes your lifeline. Trusting God when you can see the outcome is easy. Anybody can do that. But trusting Him when everything looks uncertain, that's where faith becomes real. That's when your belief turns from theory into experience. You see, faith doesn't mean you understand every step. It means you choose to keep walking when you don't. God doesn't promise clarity before obedience. He promises provision after obedience. He says, move and I will make the way. Not wait until you see the way. But that's hard for us because we like control. We want evidence before effort. We want to know that it's all going to work out before we take the leap. Yet, that's not how divine order works. God doesn't operate through our comfort. He operates through our conviction. The discomfort you feel right now isn't a sign that He's abandoned you, it's proof that He's developing you. Think about a seed buried underground. In that dark space, it looks like nothing is happening, but the truth is, everything is happening. It's being broken open so something new can grow. That's you. God allows seasons of uncertainty not to punish you, but to position you. He hides you not to withhold good from you, but to prepare you for greater. The waiting is where He shapes your character. The silence is where He strengthens your spirit. But trust requires discipline. It means you don't let your emotions dictate your faith. It means you stop interpreting delays as denials. You stop asking, why me, and start asking, what's next? You learn that even though you can't trace God's hand, you can trust His heart. He's too wise to make a mistake and too loving to abandon what He created with purpose. When you start seeing from that lens, peace begins to replace panic. You stop chasing outcomes and start focusing on obedience. You realize that you don't have to know how God will do it. You just have to stay in position when He does. Because when He moves, everything changes fast. The very thing that looks like loss now might be the foundation of your next breakthrough. Many people lose faith not because God failed them, but because they expected Him to move according to their timing. But God's delays are never denials, they're divine redirections. Sometimes He slows you down to protect you from what you can't see ahead. Sometimes He closes doors because He knows you're not ready for what's behind them. And sometimes He lets you walk through fire because that's the only way to burn away what doesn't belong in your next season. If you're in a moment right now where nothing seems to make sense, don't give up. You're not off track. You're in training. Trust isn't built in comfort, it's built in conflict. You can't develop endurance without resistance. You can't strengthen faith without pressure. That's why every challenge you're facing has a purpose. It's refining you into someone who can handle what you've been praying for. The truth is, trusting God doesn't make life easier, it makes it meaningful. It gives your pain purpose. It turns confusion into character. It transforms fear into fuel. Every time you choose to trust instead of panic, you're planting seeds of faith that will produce a harvest in the future. There will be moments when the only prayer you can manage is, God, help me keep walking. And that's enough. Because faith is not about the absence of fear, it's about moving forward in spite of it. It's about choosing to believe that even when you can't see the full picture, the artist knows exactly what he's painting. If you're waiting right now, keep waiting with purpose. If you're unsure, keep walking with faith. You are not lost, you are being led. You are not forgotten, you are being formed. One day soon, you'll look back and realize that the season that broke you was the same season that built you. You'll thank God for the doors He closed because they forced you onto the path He designed. So, when you can't see the way, trust the one who is the way. Stop demanding a map when you have a guide. Keep your eyes on Him, not on what's missing. Because if He called you to it, He'll bring you through it not in your strength, but in His. The waiting is not wasted. The struggle is not pointless. The silence is not punishment, it's preparation. And when it's time, the same God who allowed you to walk through the valley will lift you to the mountain. But He's teaching you something vital first, how to trust when you can't see. Because once you learn that, you become unstoppable. Grace over guilt, the power of spiritual renewal. There comes a moment in every person's life when guilt becomes the loudest voice in the room. It's that whisper that reminds you of everything you've done wrong, every mistake you've made, every opportunity you've wasted. It's the weight that keeps you looking backward when your destiny is calling you forward. Guilt tells you that you're disqualified, unworthy, beyond redemption. But grace says something different. Grace says, I can still use you, I can still restore you, I can still make something beautiful out of the broken pieces of your life. Grace is not permission to stay the same, it's the power to change. It's the divine reset button that lets you start again without shame. The problem is, too many people are living their lives trapped between guilt and grace. They know God forgives, but they haven't forgiven themselves. They keep replaying the past, not realizing that God already deleted the file. Every time you let guilt define you, you reject the very gift that was meant to free you. You see, guilt comes from the enemy, but conviction comes from God. Guilt says, you are your mistake. Conviction says, you made a mistake, but you're still mine. Guilt paralyzes, conviction mobilizes. Guilt locks the door, grace opens it. If you're still carrying guilt, you're walking through life with unnecessary weight. You can't step into the next level while dragging the baggage of who you used to be. Grace calls you higher. Grace says, you're not what you did, you're what I'm doing in you now. Spiritual renewal begins the moment you stop rehearsing your pain and start embracing your purpose. You can't keep watering the weeds of guilt and expect a harvest of peace. You have to uproot the lies that tell you you're unworthy and replace them with truth. The truth is that you're not here by accident. The truth is that God's mercy renews every morning, not just once. The truth is that your story still matters, not because it's perfect, but because it's proof. Proof that grace works. Proof that love wins. Proof that God redeems. There's a reason why grace is so uncomfortable for people who like control. It can't be earned. You can't perform your way into it. It's a gift freely given but rarely understood. Grace levels the playing field. It reminds you that no matter how far you've fallen, you're still within reach of restoration. But you have to stop running from grace and start running with it. Some of you are praying for peace, but peace can't find you because you're still chained to guilt. You keep asking for clarity while holding on to condemnation. But grace cannot coexist with guilt. One will drive the other out. When you choose grace, you choose to see yourself through God's eyes instead of your own failures. You begin to understand that His plan for your life didn't end the moment you messed up, it just took a different path. Grace rebuilds what guilt tried to destroy. It turns lessons into wisdom, pain into empathy, and loss into purpose. It transforms your scars into stories that heal others. That's the beauty of spiritual renewal. It's not just about being forgiven, it's about being refocused. It's about stepping back into alignment with who you were always meant to be before the world, the sin, and the shame tried to rewrite your identity. There's a power that comes when you finally stop running from yourself. When you look at your reflection and say, yes, I made mistakes, yes, I fell short, but I'm still chosen, I'm still called, I'm still loved. That moment changes everything because that's when grace becomes real. That's when the chains start breaking, not because you earned your freedom, but because you accepted it. And once you've tasted that kind of grace, you stop judging others so harshly too. You stop expecting perfection from people and start offering understanding. You become a vessel of the same mercy that was extended to you. Grace doesn't just change how you see God, it changes how you see people. It softens your heart. It expands your compassion. It teaches you that broken doesn't mean useless, it means rebuildable. If guilt has been your companion for too long, it's time to let it go. Guilt will never lead you closer to God. It will only keep you hiding from Him. But grace brings you home. Grace whispers, you're still my child. Come as you are. You don't have to fix everything before you return. You just have to return. God doesn't need your perfection to bless you. He just needs your permission to heal you. When you live in grace, you stop living like a victim and start walking like a victor. You stop seeing yourself through the lens of your failure and start seeing yourself through the lens of your faith. Grace renews your mind, strengthens your spirit, and redefines your future. It doesn't erase the past, but it redeems it. Every moment of pain becomes part of a bigger purpose. Every tear becomes a seed for a future harvest. Every failure becomes a testimony of what God can do through a surrendered heart. You have to understand, grace doesn't make you weak. It makes you unstoppable. Because once you know you're forgiven, fear loses its grip. Once you know you're redeemed, doubt loses its voice. Once you know you're loved, shame loses its power. That's what spiritual renewal looks like. Not pretending you have it all together, but knowing that even when you don't, God still does. So today, choose grace over guilt. Stop punishing yourself for what you can't change and start praising God for what He can. Stop looking at who you were and start becoming who you're meant to be. The power of spiritual renewal is not found in trying harder, it's found in surrendering deeper. Because when you finally let grace lead, you don't just get forgiven, you get transformed. Faith in action, living what you say you believe. Faith was never meant to be a feeling. It was never designed to be a word that sounds good in prayer or looks neat on a t-shirt. Faith is not a slogan, it's a system for living. It's an active force that demands movement, decision, and direction. You can't claim faith and stay still. You can't talk faith and live fear. You can't say you trust God and then act as if He's not in control. Faith has to show up in your choices, your habits, and your obedience. That's where transformation happens. You see, too many people confuse belief with faith. Belief is what you think. Faith is what you do with what you think. Belief can exist in the mind, but faith is proven in motion. Real faith doesn't wait for everything to feel right before it acts. It moves, even when it's uncomfortable. It speaks life, even when the situation looks dead. It gives even when the resources look small. It forgives even when the pain still stings. Faith is what bridges the gap between your current reality and your divine destiny. When you live what you say you believe, you begin to embody the principles you speak about. You stop using faith as decoration and start using it as direction. You stop saying, "I trust God," and start showing that you trust Him by stepping into the unknown, by choosing peace instead of panic, by letting go instead of holding on. Faith without movement is fantasy. It feels good to talk about, but does nothing to change your life. Faith is like a muscle. It only grows through resistance. Every challenge you face is an opportunity for that muscle to strengthen. When things don't go your way, when prayers aren't answered on your schedule, when people doubt your calling, that's where faith gets tested. That's where you find out whether it's real or just routine. The test isn't to destroy you, it's to prove you. It's God's way of showing you what's inside you that you didn't know was there. If you look through Scripture, every person who walked in power had to walk by faith first. They didn't wait for signs, they became the sign. They didn't wait for confirmation, they became the confirmation. They didn't wait for comfort, they walked in conviction. Faith doesn't require you to have all the answers, it requires you to move with what you have, because the moment you step out, that's when heaven steps in. You cannot separate faith from obedience. They're twins, one can't survive without the other. You can't say, "I trust God with my future," but refuse to let go of what's not serving you. You can't say, "I believe in abundance," while living in a mindset of scarcity. You can't say, "I have faith in His timing," while trying to manipulate the outcome. Living what you believe means aligning every area of your life with your confession. It's the consistency between your words and your walk that releases power. The truth is, faith is uncomfortable. It requires risk. It asks you to step out of the boat while the storm is raging. It asks you to believe in a vision no one else can see yet. It asks you to sow when you'd rather save, to forgive when you'd rather fight, to persist when you'd rather quit. But that's the price of transformation. Faith never leaves you where it found you. It stretches you, shapes you, and refines you until you become someone who can carry the weight of your purpose. When you start living faith instead of just talking about it, people will notice. They'll see a peace in you they can't explain. They'll see a confidence that doesn't come from circumstances but from conviction. They'll wonder why you're not breaking down like everyone else when things get hard. That's the evidence of faith, not perfection, but perseverance. Faith doesn't mean you don't feel fear. It means you don't let fear make the decisions anymore. The hardest part about living faith is that it often looks foolish before it looks fruitful. People will question your decisions, misunderstand your journey, and criticize your obedience. But you can't let other people's doubt become your direction. They weren't there when God gave you the vision. They didn't hear the promise the way you did. You're not living for their approval, you're living to fulfill a purpose. And purpose always requires walking through places that others won't understand. Faith in action is about taking responsibility for your belief. It's about showing up for the assignment even when you feel inadequate. It's about trusting that if God called you, He also equipped you. The strength you need is found in the step you're afraid to take. The miracle you're waiting for is often on the other side of obedience. You won't see the full plan until you move, because revelation follows motion, not hesitation. Living by faith also means you stop measuring success by what you can see. You understand that just because something doesn't look like it's working doesn't mean it's not working. Growth often happens underground before it's visible to others. Seeds sprout in silence before they produce fruit. In the same way, your obedience might not produce instant results, but it's producing unseen progress. God is building capacity in you. He's enlarging your faith so you can handle the blessing without breaking. There's a difference between saying you believe in God and living like you do. One requires words, the other requires transformation. Every act of faith, no matter how small, rewires your life toward destiny. When you start walking by faith daily in your relationships, your finances, your mindset, you begin to experience divine acceleration. Doors open that logic can't explain. Opportunities appear that effort alone couldn't create. That's the reward of a life that doesn't just speak faith but lives it. So today, stop waiting for everything to be perfect before you move. Stop telling yourself you'll trust God when it feels right. Faith isn't about feelings, it's about decisions. Take the step. Make the call. Start the business. Apologize. Forgive. Apply. Pray. Sow. Speak. Move. Because the same God who gave you the vision will sustain you through the process. Your faith is your key, not to avoid challenges, but to overcome them. It's the engine that powers your purpose and the anchor that keeps you steady in the storm. Living faith means you stop waiting for evidence and start walking in expectation. You stop talking about trusting God and start proving it with your life. Because when you live what you say you believe, miracles become normal, blessings become frequent, and peace becomes permanent. Faith in action doesn't just change your circumstances, it changes you. And once you're changed, everything around you starts to follow. Trusting His timing, walking in peace while you wait. There comes a point in every believer's life where faith must graduate from believing for something to trusting in someone. It's one thing to believe God can do it. It's another to trust that He knows when to do it. Trusting His timing is not passive resignation, it's active surrender. It's the strength of stillness, the power of peace in a world that glorifies haste. It's the confidence that even when life feels delayed, heaven is never late. When you walk with God, you quickly learn that delay doesn't mean denial. God's clock doesn't tick by human seconds, it moves by divine purpose. Sometimes what feels like waiting is actually God preparing not just the blessing, but also the person who will receive it. Because what's worse than not getting what you prayed for is getting it before you're ready. You might have the dream, but not the discipline, the vision, but not the virtue, the opportunity, but not the order. God doesn't want to give you something that will crush you, so He teaches you through time. There's something sacred about the season of waiting. It refines you. It exposes what you truly believe. Anybody can say, I trust God when everything is moving fast. But the real test of trust happens when nothing moves, when you're in the hallway between prayers and promises, when all you can do is whisper, Lord, I still believe you know best. That's faith matured into trust. See, we live in a generation obsessed with instant results, instant fame, instant wealth, instant validation. But God is not in a hurry because He's not insecure. He's not trying to prove anything to anyone. He's trying to build something in you that lasts. So while you're looking at your clock, He's looking at your character. While you're asking, when will it happen? He's asking, who will you become while you wait? Trusting His timing requires spiritual patience, and patience is not passive. It's not sitting in a corner with folded hands. It's walking forward in faith, continuing to do the right thing even when nothing seems to happen. Patience is not idleness. It's confidence in motion. It's knowing that obedience is your responsibility and outcome is God's. When you understand that, peace replaces pressure. Maybe right now you're frustrated because doors haven't opened, people haven't shown up, or prayers haven't been answered the way you expected. But what if the delay is the design? What if this season of waiting is shaping you into the kind of person who can sustain the success you're praying for? Because it's not enough to receive a blessing, you have to be the person who can handle it. God knows timing is everything. A seed planted in winter won't grow no matter how much you water it. It needs the right season. So when God says, wait, He's not punishing you, He's protecting your harvest. The waiting room of faith is where warriors are built. It's where God replaces your impatience with endurance, your doubt with depth, your worry with wisdom. You begin to see that His delays are not denials, they are divine pauses for preparation. Every not yet from heaven carries an unseen, I'm working on something better. But to hear that whisper, you must silence your anxiety. You must learn the art of stillness, the kind that doesn't come from doing nothing, but from trusting completely. When you truly trust His timing, you stop trying to manipulate outcomes. You stop chasing what's not yours yet and start cultivating what is. You stop comparing your timeline to others because you realize that comparison is the thief of divine confidence. You're not behind, you're being built. You're not forgotten, you're being formed. You're not delayed, you're being developed. And when God finally releases what He promised, you'll see that the waiting was not wasted. Every tear, every prayer, every lonely night was preparing you for a moment of divine alignment. Faith says, God can. Trust says, even if He doesn't yet, I'm still at peace. That's the posture of power, the ability to walk through uncertainty with serenity. When you walk in peace while you wait, you confuse the enemy, because the enemy expects you to panic, to doubt, to quit. But when you stay calm, when you keep worshiping, when you keep working, when you keep believing, that's when heaven moves. God's timing is not just about the destination, it's about the transformation that happens along the way. Sometimes He slows you down because He's letting something catch up to you. Maybe a relationship needs maturing, a door needs aligning, or your spirit needs refining. Trusting His timing means understanding that what's meant for you cannot miss you. The delay won't cancel destiny. The pause won't stop purpose. The promise still stands. So instead of saying, God, hurry up, start saying, God, help me hold on. Instead of praying for speed, pray for strength. Instead of asking, why not now? Ask, what are you teaching me here? Because when you trust his timing, you begin to find peace, not just in the promise, but in the process. You learn to rest in his sovereignty, to let go of control and embrace contentment. And that's when miracles begin to manifest. Because God moves through peace, not panic. When your heart is calm, your spirit becomes a magnet for clarity. You start seeing what he's doing behind the scenes. You start hearing his voice more clearly. You start realizing that he was never late. He was just aligning the timing so the blessing wouldn't become a burden. The truth is, you can't rush what's meant to last. You can't force what's divinely timed. If it's from God, it will fit perfectly. No pushing, no forcing, no begging. Just flow. And when it happens, you'll look back and thank him for every delay that didn't make sense. Because it was in those moments of waiting that you grew, that you matured, that you became ready. So today, walk in peace. Don't let impatience rob your joy or fear poison your faith. Trust that his timing is flawless, even when it feels frustrating. Keep doing what you can, and let him handle what you can't. Keep building, keep believing, keep becoming. Because one day, you'll wake up and realize it all happened right on time.